All right, hello. Um, I'm going to quickly run through something that has been requested from us here, is how to reskin the objects as part of the simple dungeon generator. So there's two ways that you can go about doing that. You can either do that in Unity, which is kind of the quick and dirty method. You're not going to get a ton of mileage out of that, but you can do it. Um, and then the other method is with Blender, which I will show in the second part of this video. So if I take our wall object, which we can find in our simple dungeon generator folder, in the room prefabs under objects, we can see wall 1, we have our wall. And if I wanted to reskin this, kind of the simplest way to do that is to go into textures where we have our textures, our various mappings, and our materials. And you can either take a material and drop it on the object in your scene, which will only redo that one particular object, or we can drag it to in our object settings under materials where it says wall remapped materials. We can drop that in there, hit apply, and you'll see that it shows up. Super quick and super dirty, as you can see. The texture looks super gross, and that's because of the way the UV mapping is set up in Blender. So to give a quick explanation of what that is, let me just clear that. If we actually look at the texture on our material, you can see that there's a section at the top here, section at the bottom, and then there's kind of a ladder shape in the middle. And I am basically using just this ladder section for this wall, which means if you replace this texture with, say, this texture, we're only going to be using a small chunk of this texture on the wall, and that's why it gets really skewed out of proportion. So, quick and dirty, that's all you have to do. But if you would like to know how to do it a little bit better, let me go ahead and show you how we do this in Blender. All right, so here we are in Blender, and we're going to walk through the steps for fixing the texture, reskinning the object with Blender. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Import FBX. All of the object files for Simple Dungeon Generator are FBX files. And then you're going to navigate to the folder where you can find the file. And as you can see, I've jumped right to mine here. Then we have wall 1, and I'm simply going to say import FBX. Now you'll notice that this is coming in gray. That is because when I exported this originally, I missed a step, which is something I will be fixing in the package, hopefully in the next week or two, once I have time to actually get around to doing this. But basically, this object has no texture applied. If we click on shading, we'll see that it shows up as purple. And if I click on the object, we can see that there is actually a texture assigned in the nodes, but it's not being applied because it was not included as part of the export. So the way that we can fix that is by going back to modeling. No. Modeling. UV editing. Sorry. There we go. We go to UV editing, and we can see the UV map on the left-hand side. And all we're going to do is say image, replace, and we're going to navigate to the folder where we want our new texture, or in my case, I will jump to where my old textures are. There we go. And we have wood barn wall color. So I'm just going to select that. I will zoom out, and we can see where things are mapped to now. Something that we can do as well in our UV map is up in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to click on the viewport shading icon, and that way we can actually see the colors. And what I want to do, if I want to demonstrate how we can move this around, what I'm going to do is say select face. I can click here, and we can see that one face has been selected. And while we're in here, we're going to select edge. I want to move this top edge. Now, if I just move this top edge around, you'll notice that the line between these two things does not move nicely. It creates a rather jarring effect. So let me undo that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both faces on the right-hand side, which shows us both squares here. Both squares here. I'm going to go to edge detection, and I'm going to go back here. And now if I slide this around, you'll see that it actually maintains the way that it looks. So it doesn't get super disgruntled looking. The other thing that you can do when you're in this particular side, again with all faces selected, is press A to select all of the faces, and then you can hunt down your edges in here that you need to move around, if you need to move them around, and any that you move. Again, this is a bit of a difficult thing to actually locate, but you can see the top there is moving. And that's essentially it. If you wanted to replace this with a different texture, you could simply image, replace, and say we wanted to do marble tiles like we did before. There we go. Now again, obviously, with the UV map set up the way that it is, this is going to look really gross and uncomfortable, but the more you move things around, the more you can tweak it. And if you, there are ways for you to redo this map so that it is squished on this page a little bit differently. I'm not going to go super in depth on UV mapping. If you would like to know more about that, I would highly recommend going down a YouTube rabbit hole with Blender UV mapping tutorials. They're going to do a much better job than I can of explaining how to use UV maps, how to properly set those up. But in essence, these are the steps that we go through to change this around. So let's switch this back really quickly to something that does not look terrible. There we go. And that still looks kind of gross, but that's fine. The final step that we're going to do is go File, Export, FBX, because again, I want to maintain the same format that I'm using. And if you would like your object to maintain the material when you re-import it into Blender down the road, you're going to want to change path mode from auto to copy. And you're going to click this box that currently looks empty so that it looks like it's holding two little smaller boxes. This is the information that needs to be saved when you are exporting your files in order for this information to show up. So unlike today where it showed up with a purple coloring, it will show up automatically with the correct textures in Blender. Okay, so I'm not going to export this just because I'm not worried about doing that right now, but that's effectively all that's required in order to reskin the objects. You just drop this in your folder for Unity, and then you can use those objects in whatever way you would like. Hope you find that helpful, and hope you enjoy the product. Thank you.